Welcome to another edition of Beyond the Game, presented by TV Sports. I'm your host, Stephen Hayes, and today our guest is NFL Hall of Famer, Mr. Warren Moon. Mr. Warren Moon, how you doing today?
I'm great, Stephen. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very excited to have you. I appreciate you taking the time out.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I love doing shows like this, and especially helping young brothers like yourself. And it's Super Bowl week, so there's a lot going on right now.
Yes, sir. And I'm sure you're quite busy. So, like I said, once again, I appreciate you taking the time. So, I just wanted to touch on your background, and we know you are, like I said in the beginning, you're NFL Hall of Famer. But how did it get to that point for you? Where did your upbringings come from? How did it start for you to keep you so grounded to have such a great accomplishment?
Man, Stephen, how long is this show? My journey started a long time ago trying to play this position. And, it started way back when I was 11 years old playing quarterback in Pop Warner football. And then making that journey up through high school and being told by major colleges I wasn't good enough to play that position, so you got to change. So I go to junior college and I continue to keep improving myself, finally get big time scholarship offers to a Pac-10 school, and I go to University of Washington, and then coming out of Washington as a Pac-10 Player of the Year and Rose Bowl MVP. I can't get drafted in the NFL because they said I wasn't good enough, and I wanted to change my position again. So I go to Canada and have a lot of success up there, and then I come into the NFL and I end up playing 17 years there. So it's been quite a journey of people telling me that I wasn't good enough, or it had to do with the color of my skin, and I just had to keep persevering through it all and believing in myself that I was good enough to play at every level that I was going to, and I could be successful at all those levels. And I ended up doing that, but it just took a little bit longer than most because of some of the other things I had to deal with. So again, quite a journey, but I'm a better person for it.
Now, I want to touch back on that time in the CFL, in the Canadian Football League. And you played currently the Edmonton football team, but formerly the Eskimos. Right. When you were in that time frame, was it just focusing on that task at hand, or was there still an ultimate goal to get to the NFL?
Well, when I first got up there, I wasn't sure what to expect. I didn't know much about the league at all, but I went to a very good team, a team that had a lot of leadership on it. So all I really had to do was learn the game up there, because it's a different style of play. And then, learn the CFL and just focus on getting better. But there was still a bitterness inside of me because I'm watching guys play in the NFL that I knew I could play against, that I could play with. And I watched games on television, on Sunday afternoons, or Monday Night Football or whatever, when we didn't have a game. So it was bitter because as a young kid growing up, my dream was to play in the NFL and get drafted like every other football player that has those dreams. And I felt like I was good enough to at least have that opportunity, and I didn't get that opportunity. So there was bitterness, but there was also satisfaction that I am getting a chance to play somewhere. I am making pretty good money. I am on a winning football team and we're winning championships. But there was that emptiness inside of me that, how good am I really? I want to know how good I really am. And the only way to know that is to play against the best players. So that was the thing that kept yearning inside of me, even though I was enjoying myself immensely playing up in Canada.
Now, we fast forward a little bit. You get your chance in the NFL and you tear the league up. You take it by storm. You tear the league up. I remember my father having countless stories about you, and just you being one of his favorite players to watch, along with Doug Williams for Washington football team. Now, what kept you, once you got to the NFL, what kept that passion? Was it the fact that you knew all those years you could play, and that is what kind of got that fire going up under you, or let's say that fire never left, so to speak?
Well, there was always a chip on my shoulder, no question about it, that people felt like I wasn't good enough. So I continually wanted to keep going out and show that I did belong. And then you got to look at the competition that was playing when I was playing. You had Dan Marino, you had John Elway, you had Joe Montana, you had Steve Young, you had Boomer Esiason. I mean, there was so many great players, Jim Kelly. So for me to be considered to be one of the best, I had to continue to keep working and continue to keep trying to improve because these guys weren't going to get any worse either. So I think that was the most strongest quarterback era ever. With all those guys I just named, besides Boomer, they're all in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So it was a very, very competitive time when I was playing. So for me to be considered one of the best, I had to work my tail off, even though, you know, I had good credentials coming from the CFL. I had to kind of reestablish myself all over again. And so that motivated me as well, that competition.
Now, do you still currently sit down on Sundays when you get a chance and watch the games?
I definitely do. I'm a huge fan of the games. You know, I mentor a lot of these young guys. I'm in contact with a lot of them and study the game. You know, I did broadcasting for 15 years for the Seattle Seahawks, so I was on top of the game each and every week. So it's something that's in my blood. It's in my DNA, and you just can't get away from it.
And looking from when you retired and fast forwarding to now, but you were able to see all these different styles of play come in and the different way the quarterback position has changed throughout the years. As we currently sit, how do you look at the quarterback position?
It's definitely become more of a hybrid position where you have to be able to not only throw the ball effectively from the pocket, but you also have to be able to have some movement. There's still some guys who don't have that movement like a Tom Brady, but he has enough movement within the pocket, or Drew Brees or Ben Roethlisberger. Those guys are still able to be effective, but you're starting to see their effectiveness, you know, start to fade a little bit more. The guys that are being really successful or ultra successful in this league are the Patrick Mahomes or the Josh Allens or the Deshaun Watsons, guys that can throw the ball from the pocket, no question about it, but they also have that ability to buy time and create and do things outside the pocket. That's the way the game is kind of going. And that's kind of what my style was early in my career until I got a little bit older, that I felt like I was a guy that could be a hybrid quarterback. I could move around, I could throw on the run, but I could also throw the football from the pocket. And the game has now evolved into that's the way you have to be able to play in order to play the game today.
And before we touch on, you mentioned Tom Brady, and before we get to the Chiefs and the Buccaneers and the Super Bowl, I wanted to kind of go back. You mentioned you mentor a lot of guys now in the league, and that for you. I know obviously you want to make sure that guys are learning, and any mistakes that you might have come across, you can help them along the way. But what does that actually mean to you to be able to pay it forward like that?
Probably one of the most important things that I get out of this whole thing is that I was able to kind of help make a change at that position, as far as the mindset of owners and general managers and coaches that African Americans could play at a high level in the NFL. Myself, Doug Williams, Randall Cunningham, when we played in the 80s and 90s, we proved that. So it opened the door for this next set of guys that have come in and are doing very, very well. And then the fact that I'm able to have a relationship with a lot of them, something that I wasn't able to have with anybody when I came into the league, because there just wasn't a whole lot of guys who had played the game, first of all. There wasn't a lot of guys that I could reach out to. So I think it's important that not only myself, but Doug is a guy who mentors a lot of guys as well. And so does Randall. These guys have somebody they can talk to. It's not that we talk to them each and every week, but they know that if there's something they're dealing with that we've probably dealt with before, we can give them an answer. And there's no way a quarterback, an African-American quarterback, can relate to what these guys go through unless another African-American quarterback is talking to them, because we deal with things a little bit differently than other quarterbacks do.
Absolutely. And I just want to say thank you to you, Mr. Williams and Mr. Cunningham, because I've seen Doug Williams. I've seen a interview with him, and he said just to be able to hear Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens and Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs being called by solely their names as opposed to saying African-American quarterback, you know, he said that was what you guys were fighting for, to get that justification. And how does that feel now, seeing the way that it's fine now? You're able to say that name without anything in front of it.
Yeah, that was something we were always striving for. We just wanted to be known as quarterbacks because that's all we were. But we always had the adjective in front of it, black quarterback, you know. So that's gone now. All these guys are known as who they are. They're very highly endorsed players. They're making a ton of money. they're the face of their franchises, and some of them the face of the league. So it's huge where these guys have come, and I like to stick my chest out just a little bit every time I see one of them on a commercial, or every time I see one of them on an NFL advertisement or something like that, to know that I played a small part in that.
You absolutely should, because you guys paved the way. And like I said, I wasn't around to see your era live as my father and some of my uncles were. But of course, when I'm around my father, my uncles, and I hear they mention your name or Doug Williams, it's always come with just a frown on their face, but it's a good frown, because they always say, oh, that was a bad boy, or however you want to put it. So
Yeah,
going back, looking at your film, absolutely amazing.
Well, thank you very much. Tell your dad he's a smart man for recognizing talent.
I absolutely will. I absolutely will. And I just wanted to, before we get you out of here, I know you were on the Kansas City Chiefs your last year, correct?
Yes, sir.
And like you mentioned, Tom Brady, not being that mobile, but still has that arm and everything like that. And this is really a battle of past versus present, the way they're trying to make it. How do you see the Super Bowl matchup going?
It's going to be a great matchup, because you have the ultimate competitor and also champion in Tom Brady playing in this game. I mean, he's going for his 7th Super Bowl. That's almost unheard of. I mean, it is unheard of. And then you've got Patrick Mahomes going for his 2nd in a row. I mean, he's the up and coming, superstar in this league. Tom Brady, I'm sure, wants to prove that he can go somewhere else and win a Super Bowl without being England uniform. So there's a lot of motivation for both sides. But I just think Kansas City has a little bit more firepower right now. The only thing that concerns me is their left tackle, Eric Fisher, being out of this game. And one of the strengths of Tampa is their front four. They can put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. So it's going to put more pressure on Patrick Mahomes to be able to move around and buy time. And hopefully he's injury free enough to do that, because we know he's dealing with a foot injury. But I still think when it's all said and done, it's going to be a high scoring game. But I think Kansas City maybe wins the game like 35-30, something like that, a high scoring game.
Do you feel Tampa Bay being at home does that any bit of an edge for them, even though it's a Super Bowl, but they're still at home?
I think it helps only because they don't have to worry about traveling. They don't have to worry about being in a hotel. But sometimes you can get too comfortable being at home, especially for a big game. You got family all around all the time. They're putting pressure on you for tickets. And what are we going to do after the game? All these different things that you don't worry about when you're on the road. When you're on the road, sometimes you can focus better as a team, and you kind of come together and circle the wagons and say it's us against the world, where when you're at home, you relax just a little bit more. So in some ways, it can work against you. The last time the Chiefs played them was in Tampa when they beat them. So they know they can beat them in Tampa. That's not something that they're worried about.
And before, I always ask our guests to leave some words of encouragement. But before I get to that, I wanted to know, through your journey, like you said, always being told that you had to change your position, or because of the color of your skin and all the adversity you had to overcome to become the person you are today. What did it mean to you when you got the call, or however you received the news, that you were going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback in the NFL?
Yeah, you just never know if those things are going to happen or not. People tell you that you're in the ballpark and that you have a chance, but it's out of your hands. You have no control over it. It's not like as a player, I have control over what my career is, by how I go out on the field and play. Now all of a sudden, my fate is in 39 voters' hands, whether they thought I was good enough to be a Hall of Famer. So it's kind of nerve-wracking, and I'm glad I only had to go through it once, because I got to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, which was great. I couldn't imagine going through it 12, 13 times, like some of these guys have. But when I first heard the news, I was in Detroit. I was with the Seahawks at the time. We were playing Pittsburgh in the Super Bowl, and I was broadcasting the game. So I got the call when I was there, and I was driving my car, believe it or not, and my wife was in the car with me, and I was traveling downtown to go to the press conference where they were going to make the selections. And I had been convinced to go down there because I was in the final, I think, 8 at that time. I really didn't want to go down there, because if it didn't happen, I would really feel embarrassed if I was there and all of a sudden I didn't get calls. But I went down there anyway, and when I got the call, I was in the car on the way. And man, all the emotion just came out of me. I mean, I started crying like a baby. My wife had to take the wheel of the car. I was on the freeway at the time, and it was snowing and sleeting, and it was just a very emotional moment. And the things that came to my mind was all the guys who had played before me, the Marlon Briscoes, the Shaq Harrises, the Joe Gilliams, all those guys who were shunned and had to go through all the different things that they went through, and all the guys that didn't get a chance to play quarterback who had the ability to do it. Those are the things that came into my mind at that time, that all these guys deserved part of this.
And lastly, first of all, I love that. And I love the way you said you were overcome with emotion, because it means a lot. It truly does. You know what you worked hard for.
Yeah, when you love the game the way I did, when you worked at it the way I did, and then you were told all the different things that I was told, and the names that I was called, and the death threats, and all the things that happened throughout the course of my career, it all made it worth it to be known as one of the best players to ever play the game.
And lastly, Mr. Moon, if you could leave some words of encouragement for anyone out here, the viewers that's watching, if you younger generation, anyone striving to be anything, doctor, lawyer, athlete, what words of encouragement could you leave with them today?
You know, I wrote a book about 10, 12 years ago called Never Give Up on Your Dream, My Journey. And basically, that's what I didn't do. I never gave up on my dream, which was to play in the National Football League and be successful, and all the things that it takes to make that happen. But you never can prepare for all the obstacles that are going to be in your way. So you just have to know this. It's never a perfect journey. There's going to be obstacles. You're going to have to persevere through those obstacles and just keep your eyes on the prize, which is the goal that you set for yourself. Mine was a dream that became a goal. And just know that if you look at my story, where I came from and where I ended up, it can happen to anybody, but you have to be able to be willing to put the hard work in. You have to be able to persevere through tough times, because it's not going to be an easy road. But once you get there, it's so worth it. It's so worth it. So that's the thing I would say. The work you put in, whatever work you put in, you're going to get the results out of it. But just know there's going to be other bumps and swerves in the road along the way that you're going to have to deal with. And it's how you deal with those swerves and bumps is if you ever make it to your goal.
I truly thank you for those words of encouragement. And I, again, thank you for taking the time to sit down with us today, come on the show. And I'm very happy, because I was always looking and hearing stories. And when I seen the footage and stuff, I was just like, wow, he was a bad man. So, Mr. Warren Moon, I truly appreciate you.
Well, Stephen, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it too, and look forward to talking to you down the road, and enjoy the Super Bowl this weekend. It should be a barn burner.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right.
So take care.